For today's episode of Behind the Brand, I'm chatting with Janet Leighton, the Director of Happiness at Timpson. Now, if you're based in the UK, you will very much know who and what Timpson is. But for those of you further afield, Timpson is predominantly a key cutting and shoe repair company that began in the UK in 1865. It's a family-run business that has greatly expanded its offerings, and even now they continue to be run by members of the Timpson family. CEO James Timpson even wrote a book last year, The Happy Index, which shares the philosophy and approaches Timpson takes to its culture and business. While James Timpson is currently away from the business, acting as UK Prison Minister, I was delighted that Janet agreed to come on the podcast to share their highly people-centric approach to culture that's made them such a retail success. Janet is a bundle of energy. Her email signature is even Mrs. Motivator, and you'll understand why when you get to hear Janet speak. So without any further delay, let's dive in. Hi, Janet, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Lizzie, and thanks very much for having me.
So I am very excited because I feel like I have a bit of British heritage on the podcast today. Because those of us who live in the UK, Timpsons is like an absolute part of British life, I feel like anyway. So for those of us who know Timpsons of the key cutting and the shoe repair service, but what is the culture like? Tell us about the culture.
Oh, the culture is absolutely, in one word, I would say it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Very, very different from the majority of businesses. There are very few businesses like ours, and we've really grown and expanded over the years, but somehow we've managed to keep that family, that what we call small family, like we've all got. However, we're a lot bigger with 5,000 of us, but it's just like home from home. So
Mm.
home and work doesn't feel any different to me. It's all one of the same thing.
Oh, I love that so much. And what really kind of always comes across to me with Timpsons is this very like people-centric nature. I feel like that comes across really well in the way that you guys talk about things, even in your stores, you have posters about what you're doing in your culture, about the things that are happening. And I find that really impressive. But what is something that might surprise us, like that we perhaps wouldn't know about Timpsons that, you kind of think, oh, well, actually, I've got something up our sleeve that you might not know, Lizzie.
Well, there's more services than a lot of people appreciate for a start, and our colleagues are all multi-service. So, in a normal shop, a retail shop on the high street, you'll perhaps to go Sainsbury's or wherever, and you know what you're buying, and they sell the product or they work on the till. In our branches now, you see more and more of it where they're doing shoe repairs, and then they're doing the engraving, then they're repairing a watch, and then they're doing some photos, then they're doing some dry cleaning. In fact, some of our shops now, you'll see at the front of them, they almost say Johnson's Dry Cleaners, Timpson's, Max Spielman. It's not unusual to see three shops in one
Yeah.
and one colleague serving all those different services, which is very, very unusual in any other business that I'm aware of.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like that? Because it's really interesting. You kind of mentioned that bit about that multi-service approach. Because I feel like, the high street has really gone through it over the past decade, really. Certainly
Mm.
in my lifetime, I used to remember a time where going into town and, going shopping on a Saturday would be like a real highlight of the week, especially as a teenager. And then sort of it's kind of almost sort of really struggled since probably the financial crash, really, sort of 2008 time. It's really struggled, and a lot of retail brands have really had hard times to adapt. And do you feel like that multi-service approach is part of your adaptability, that you're actually listening to customers and thinking about the other services that you can provide rather than just that one thing?
Oh, 100%, definitely. We've diversified, and you'll see now in most of the major retailers, Sainsbury's, Tesco, Morrison's, you'll find a Timpson or a Barber Pod. It's not unusual, and again, we've diversified by doing that so that it's a one-stop shop. So if somebody wants to go to Sainsbury's, perhaps they need to get the hair cut at the same time or the keys cut, it's not a problem. Whereas on the high street, it's very different, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
So
Yeah.
where other businesses and retailers have reduced in numbers, We've
Yeah.
actually expanded,
Oh my
which
goodness.
again in these times is very, very unusual. But
Yeah.
absolutely great for us and great for the general public because they've got those services to use. And a lot of the services are what they need. So it's not about
Yeah.
luxury items. We don't go there. We go on the things you need. You need your keys cutting, you need your shoes repairing, you need your watch repairing. So they're essential services.
They are. They're all things that you do just need to get all done all at once most of the time, don't you? And if you just, you may as well just go all at once and just take it all with you rather than having to go to multiple places.
That's right. And when you do get there, because a lot of people don't really enjoy going shopping anymore, when you do get there, it's nice to meet somebody that will spend some time with you, will understand what your needs are, or will
Yeah.
be concerned if you're not having a great day, because none of us know what's going on in people's lives. So what
Mm,
we want to do is ensure when a customer goes into a branch and they meet one of our colleagues, that it actually does cheer them up, or they feel
mm,
happy with the service, because we want to give excellent customer service.
yeah. And it's so tough. I mean, retail is probably one of the toughest industries out there at the moment. So how do you kind of work to attract people that do have that excellent customer service and, have that passion behind them when they're in the stores and kind of, representing Timpson? Because it feels like a real tough industry.
Well, first and foremost, when we're looking to recruit, we want one thing, and that's personality.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't care where you come from, what you've done in the past. It's what you're doing today and what you want to do tomorrow that matters. So we're
Mm,
looking for people who are passionate, engaged, and that could be passionate about poetry or your family or your dog or football or absolutely anything, as long as we've got that passion for something. Because we believe we can train a colleague to do a particular role. What you can't do is train a personality
yeah. Oh my
because
gosh.
we've already got them. And when I say personality, that doesn't mean everybody's crazy like me or
Yeah.
everybody's really quiet, or serious. We've got a
Yeah.
whole host of very, very different colleagues who just work well together to make things happen. We roll our sleeves up and get things done ultimately. Like you do at home when something needs doing. You
Yeah.
just get it done, don't well, if you have to, you get it done. I try and avoid it at all costs. But that's what we do at home. So that's what we do at work. We roll our sleeves up and get it done.
Yeah. Oh, and it's interesting because I think sometimes we can have a really limited mindset towards recruitment because I still see it now, and it's getting better. I will admit it's getting better, but people are still looking for just qualifications or just those bits of paper. We're kind of I heard it once discussed like it's like a diploma fetish. We've got it kind of fetishized having these degrees and certifications when actually it's the source, it's the authenticity that people have, it's the energy they bring to something that we really want to like learn about. Yes, they need to be able to do the job, but also really kind of change that mindset. And that kind of saddens me sometimes in recruitment. Like, what's your advice to people that are still kind of there?
I'd say the same thing. You can have all the degrees in the world and be highly intelligent, but have no common sense.
That's a
It's true, isn't
superpower,
it?
Janet.
Yeah, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we're looking for people with a can-do attitude, with
Mm,
drive, determination, not somebody who gets things perfectly right all the time, but somebody who will learn from mistakes, who will put their
yeah.
hands up and say, you know what, that was me, I messed that up. That's no problem. We learn from those, but we want
Yeah.
people who are open to that and are willing to give it a try and say, actually, I've got a brilliant idea. Can we try this? I say to people, try it. If it doesn't work, we just stop it. If it does work, then let's shout about it and really enjoy the moment.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's not, I'm all for people going to university and studying, doing
Hmm.
all the right things for the right reasons.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to working, it's about you as a person. It's who you are, what you believe in, what matters to you, that gets you where you need to be or want to be.
Mm, definitely. Do you know what? It's interesting because I saw your CEO on Channel 4. I'm sure you guys probably had loads of feedback from the Channel 4 when he was on Channel 4 with the book. And I remember thinking, is this a PR stunt? because like a typical me, I'm really into culture, so I'm always like a little bit skeptic. And I thought, well, there's a Timpson's down my road. I'm going to go and ask the guy in there. He knows me. I go in there all the time to get like my shoes repaired to try
Yeah.
and make them last a bit longer. So I thought I'll go and ask him. And I went in there and I said, this is a really weird question. I said, but I've just seen your CEO on Channel 4 News talking about culture. I was like, is it really like that? It's like, yeah, it is. It's amazing. And I was like from the horse's mouth. Do you know what I mean? And that is so
Mm,
rare that what you see out there is true to what's going on in the store because sometimes it can be so far removed
mm,
from the retail store to like the head office or whatever. Like there can be a very different feeling, but to be able to still go down my town street and speak to my Timpsons guy and he'd be like, yeah, it's amazing to work for Timpsons. And I was just like, wow, this is so I stood there like quizzing him. I was like, right.
and did he get all the questions right?
I was so amazed. I was like, maybe I should come work for Timpsons. I get a part-time job. But it was just really beautiful for me to experience that when it's really easy for us to kind of do that culture washing in
Of
a
course.
like PR social media. People rave about it on social media now.
Yeah.
And then it's not like when you go and really go in there, the culture isn't as authentic as you believed it to be, and it's kind of a bit disappointing. But that isn't the case for Timpsons, and I love that.
No, when it's real, it's really simple. And I say this to people, put people first, put your colleagues first, put your colleagues second, put your colleagues third. The colleagues come before money. Money rolls in through your colleagues, and it's as simple as that. And when you're very authentic like we are, and you've seen that in our CEO's book,
Yeah,
everything in there is 100% accurate and factual, which is why you can talk to any one person within our business and you'll get the same answers,
yeah,
different degrees, but you'll get the same answers. You'll get
yeah.
the same yeses, you'll get the same nos because it's real. And
Mm,
I think in a lot of businesses, that's where they miss out because they do the talk. If you say on your tin that you're going to do this, then that's what you need to do. And that's what we do. No
yeah,
matter who you are in our business, we expect you to tell the truth and say it as it is.
yeah,
There's,
definitely.
there'd be no point me sat here telling you things that aren't true.
Mm,
Well, I'd forget what I was saying for a start. Yeah, I would because it's not true. But when it's true,
yeah,
it's really simple and really, really
so
effective.
true. It's so true. Yeah, I love that, Janet, and it's interesting for me as well because what really came through was that sense of trust and that
Hmm.
sense of ownership and responsibility because there can be an attitude of like, oh well, this is just my job, like almost like a half-heartedness.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is becoming, maybe I'm getting old, Janet, I don't know.
I
But
think we all are, Lizzie, we all are.
but I was like, do you know what? Sometimes I think people just don't seem to care as much as they used to, like about doing a good job. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
if this is becoming like a societal, cultural thing, but
Hmm.
everyone's kind of like half-assing it sometimes. And I'm a bit
Yeah.
like, no, come on, like, really take ownership and be proud of what you're creating. And that's what I get when I go into a Timpsons, is that they have
Mm.
this real sense of pride and sense
Mm.
of ownership over what they're doing.
Because they feel that it's theirs. If you go in a
Mm,
Timpson branch, that colleague will feel like it's theirs. And that's because we empower our colleagues to take ownership, to be responsible. And we've learned over the years that people, not just our colleagues, people in general, we're all a lot more capable than we believe we are. But it's only when
mm,
you've got someone behind you going, you've got this, you go and
yeah.
do it. I'm going to give you the freedom and autonomy to be the best you can be. What do?
Mm,
You think, oh, I've got all this. Oh, I'm going to go and do it. This is amazing. I've got this freedom to do it. And that's how people thrive.
mm, yeah,
For some people, that
true.
takes a while
Yeah,
because a lot of people are used to being told what to do when you go to work, whereas we don't have any of that. Ours is all about supporting one another and being there for one another. If somebody needs help, somebody goes to help them. That's what it's about. But that is quite different than majority of businesses. But yeah, we say to our colleagues, this is your branch. We want you to give excellent customer service. We want to support you to give you the tools to do that. Tell us
yeah.
what you want, and we'll be there to support you and do it.
I really want to come back to this point about accountability that you've mentioned, but one thing I I have to ask is around because when we give more freedom and autonomy, because I mean all of the science says it, right? Like you read research papers, you read books, all of them are saying give people more autonomy, give people more
Hmm.
choice in how they work, and they're
Yeah.
happier and they're more productive. Like it's just like you say, it is common sense. But there is still that kind of resistance at like a leadership level in many organizations where they have that mindset of that people
Yeah.
have to be controlled like children and told
Yes.
what to do.
Yes.
So from the kind of like Timpson ethos, where did this kind of like letting go and trusting come from? Like how did that manifest? Because that's not easy. Like I work with leaders and founders who are like, "Oh, Lizzie, this is really uncomfortable." So
Yeah.
how did that kind of manifest?
Well, it happened many, many, many years ago. It's probably about 28, 30 years ago now. John Timpson, who is our chairman, he decided to go around the branches and decided upside down management was the way forward.
Mm.
And very cleverly, he went into all the branches, and he still goes into all these branches today, many, many years on, and said to the colleagues, from today, you've got the freedom to do what you need to do to give excellent customer service. He did that with all the branches and then spoke to the area managers who said, oh, how does this work? This is how it works. You're there to support the colleagues to give that service so that they can give excellent customer service. Oh, okay. Now, some area managers went back to their branches and said, no, if you want to do anything, you come through me. So you can imagine we actually lost some managers for that reason because they just couldn't handle it.
No.
But John was very clever in doing that
Yeah.
because he went to the right people, didn't they? Because some of the branch managers were saying, hold on, I've got freedom. I can do what I want to do. And sure enough, that's how it evolved. And then we've been working with that ever since. So if you look at a normal leadership team, they make decisions, don't they? And they filter it down. And then eventually it gets to the most junior colleagues at some point.
Yeah.
In our business is very different. If you take a pyramid, yeah, you look at the pyramid, the top's going to be the customers who get the
Mm.
service. But right near to those are our colleagues in branches. Then all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Right at the bottom, you've now got John.
Mhm.
Okay, so John's right at the bottom. So
Yeah.
John's job is to support everybody in our business. So in many respects, the higher up the food chain you are, you're just there to support more people and give
Mm.
freedom and autonomy,
Yeah.
which is totally different than most businesses. And a lot of people in business come to me and they say, how do you make it work, Janet? Because our CEO's just not getting it. And that's when it becomes difficult.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
your CEO, your chairman, your leadership board all nod in the right places, but actually don't really believe what it's about and still insist on telling people what to
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I mean, you're singing my language, Janet.
do.
You are,
It's
'cause
normal language for us. It's just so
yeah.
normal. I
Yeah.
just wish more businesses and owners of businesses would let go, stop
Mm.
controlling.
Yeah.
Because if you stop controlling and you recruit the right people, that's the thing as well. If you don't recruit the right people, they need to move on.
Yeah.
It's definitely the way forward. Definitely the way forward. Am I
Yeah.
selling it to you?
You are. I mean, like I say, you're speaking my language because, on this podcast, I'm all about, like empowerment, self-management,
Mm,
giving more autonomy.
yeah, yeah.
And it's so challenging when people
Mm,
just don't get it. And like you said, there's many layers that don't get it. It's not just the leaders, people that have got quite comfortable in any kind of authority or power don't want to release that power.
no,
And it's that
no.
mindset of, or if I share power, that means I somehow how lose it. And it's that mindset shift that they just can't quite grasp yet.
And it's a shame because when you can grasp it, it just becomes more autonomous. So you
Mm,
work together. If you trust one another, you
yeah,
know that if you're the best person to do that part of the job, you do that. Lizzie, you do your bit, somebody else does their bit, and then you come together and oh, here's a brilliant result. Or oh, it's not really worked. Let's rip that up and start again.
yeah, yeah,
In our business, we just roll our sleeves up. We don't
definitely.
spend weeks and weeks and weeks and months planning things and having meeting after meeting after meeting. We don't bother. We just go, "Oh, who should do that? You do that, you do that, I'll do that. Oh, let's try it." and see
Yeah.
what happens. And
Oh,
then along the way, we'll amend things to make them better and improve them. When we
yeah.
roll something out, we roll it out small. We don't roll it out to everybody. When we try something new in a branch or we've got an idea, we don't roll it out to every branch to see what happens. We start small.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That's
that's how it works. And the other thing we do is if we've got if we're going to do something, say, different with car keys, we'll
mm,
get a group of people across the whole business who are car key enthusiasts. Fortunately, I'm not one of those. But however, that's what we get. So we get a whole host of people who are really into it. Get them together and say, right, what do you think of this? How would this work? What would you do? Because they're the people that know.
mm,
Not people like us who are not making the business any money. It's the people out there that are making the money for us, and they're the ones in the know. And
yeah.
that's what when we learn from them. If they say that's stupid, that's not going to work, we say, oh, okay, then we won't do that.
There's the two pieces there, Janet, that just for me are so important that I feel like are really hammering home what I talk about all the time. And I'm so glad you've said them because it makes a difference to my audience that I'm not saying them. But it's like the two pieces there is, first of all, experimentation. Like we have this strange kind of way of being within organizations where we don't test and experiment enough as we should. We're
Mm,
kind of in this mindset of it has to work and we have to be
mm,
really outcomes driven and
yeah.
predictable. And but that isn't the way of the world. That isn't how the world works. And so I love that you've really pinpointed there this idea of experimentation and bringing again, the second part is bringing together the people who are actually doing the work.
Yeah. It's classic. Again, isn't it simple? Isn't it basic? Isn't it fundamental?
Yeah, it
What's
really
the
is.
point in asking you or I about it?
But instead, some companies have these innovation gurus, Janet.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
What are we
They
going to
do
do with all
though.
the innovation gurus?
I don't know. We'll have to teach him to do something different. It's true though. You do see it, the amount of money invested into those sorts of things. When actually you get there a lot quicker and be more successful if you just utilize the right colleagues,
Yeah, absolutely.
the
Have you got
people
a
that make a difference.
Have you got a really good example? Because I love hearing a story of something, like an experiment or where because we talk about empowerment, but landing that in like a story for us. Have you got something where it feels like it's really clear for you that this is a really good example that you could share with our audience?
Oh, many years ago, I'll never forget a colleague who has since retired, so it's quite a few years ago now, and he was working in the Midlands and he was working in a shop, bit like a little shopping centre. Things have changed since, but he was working in a shopping centre, and John Timpson, our chairman, popped in to see him. And John had asked him what he was doing. And what he'd been doing is he'd been doing watch repairs. Okay. And at the time we didn't do watch repairs.
Yeah.
And then on the till, there was no button, obviously, for watch repairs. We didn't do them. So John said to him, "What? How have you been ringing it through?" And he was like, "Really sorry, but I've been ringing it through engraving. It's just that I've got quite a few people who've been coming in and doing this, so I've just been sort of doing it." And people in the local area who knew what he was doing were like, "Oh, it's going to be in trouble. It's going to be in trouble." No, what really happened, John said, "What a brilliant idea." The next thing is he was given a car, sent out on the road, and our watch repair business became millions and millions of pounds. And
Oh,
he'll never, ever, he was called Glenn, and he'll never, ever be forgotten for doing what he did. And it just shows you, you know, it's a multi-million-pound service now, all because he, Glenn decided to just do it, to take a
yeah.
chance. Isn't that amazing?
That story just gives me goosebumps, genuinely. It makes me
Yeah.
just feel so, in awe of
He's
that.
a hero in our business, always will be.
But
It's
it's just
amazing,
that
isn't it?
it's that perfect example of what happens when someone really feels like they're taking ownership of something, like they
Mm,
have the opportunity to do that.
yep, yep.
And that's the environment that you guys have created,
Hmm.
that's because, you can say to, people often say to me, oh, how do we motivate our team to come up with ideas? All this kind of And like, well, you can't really like carrot and stick them to be like, come
You
up with good
can't.
ideas.
You can't do it, can you? You've got to live that culture where someone goes,
Yeah.
actually, Lizzie, I've got a great idea. What do you think of this? And then you might say, actually, try it. I'm not sure about it, but you try it. Or actually, that sounds good to me. Let's try it anyway. And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's the culture that I think we need to shift in many businesses. And if we can shift that, you know, there's some really brilliant young people who are just starting out in life, who've got loads of skills, who just need an opportunity to be themselves. And I think that's probably a really important point to
Yeah.
note, that people need to feel comfortable in their environments
Yes.
to be able to say, actually, I'd like to do that. Can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel comfortable, you're going to just step back from it and just do your day-to-day job and do it successfully. But you're not going to push yourself forward because you'll be afraid of somebody saying, no, I make the decisions around here, not you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it totally is that. It really is environmental. You can't just force people to come up with good ideas. They have to have that trust and vulnerability in the environment to learn, to experiment, to fail,
Mm.
to make mistakes. Like that's
Hmm.
how we create new ideas. Let's be honest, most of the inventions that we have around the world were failures. Like the
They
things
were.
that were created were never actually meant to be created. It just so
No,
happened that this ended up making this.
it is true. That's what happens. Yeah,
Oh.
I just wish other businesses were a bit more focused on and forward thinking. People
Mm,
tend to think, if you talk about culture, oh, it's soft, it's fluffy, it's a bit silly, it's a bit nice. Actually, no, it's none of those things. It's tough. You know, it's kindness can be very commercial, and we've proven that in our business. That's why we're very, very cash rich, and that
yeah,
helps us.
yeah,
And I'd say kindness is a strength, because
yeah.
kindness is sometimes about letting go and giving somebody that freedom. So I'd say more people need to, when I say more people need to be kind, if they want to be commercial, they need to be kind.
Yeah,
Because if you're going to try and be commercial and be ruthless, it's a totally different
oh yeah.
story. If you're going to be dynamic, that's brilliant. You can be kind, dynamic, very honest, have
Mm,
very open conversations, not be afraid to say, actually, I don't think this is right for us, or I don't think you're right for the business. I don't think you're happy here. Can we, do you want to find your happiness elsewhere? There's nothing wrong with those open conversations and direct conversations, but again, a lot of people don't want to have them.
oh, why do you think that is though, Janet? Because I say this a lot of the time as well, that we have to have difficult conversations, and it's actually beneficial for us to not have a, in quotes, working relationship sometimes, because we're not happy in that relationship, just like
Hmm.
the same as it would be in a romantic relationship. Why are you going to stay
Hmm.
with something that isn't working anymore? So it's like, but what do you think stops companies from like realizing that it's not all the like fun work perks and like what you can flash your cash at culture wise, but actually it's the real
The
tough, like
hardcore.
the
Yeah.
hardcore stuff. What do you think's in the way for other companies following suit?
I think a lot of businesses are afraid
Mm,
of having that conversation. A lot of managers are very afraid of getting it wrong in case it ends up somewhere they don't want it to be, which would be in a tribunal, or it could be another senior manager saying, well, you've messed that up, so that's the end of that. So I think there's a fear factor in businesses about not getting it right, and that maybe is a training development or lack of training and development. I think there's that. And then there's also sometimes the concern that as a manager, if you do something like that and you talk about, have an open conversation with somebody else that's not going well, that the more senior people won't actually respond to that, and they'll
mm,
just say, oh, it'll be okay. And often, especially with new colleagues in businesses, people join and then they don't have a great start. Within a
mm,
few weeks, they've been off sick, they've been late, they've done this, and then the people that recruit them don't want to lose face. So what they think is, it'll get better, or I'll just extend it. I'll extend the probation because things will improve. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes, you could join a business and you might get run over, you might have a death in the family, you might
yeah,
get flu, it just happened. And you can see how that would happen. And then Obviously, you'd extend the probation. However, if you know that if things aren't right, you've got to say, excuse me, this isn't working and I need to fail your trial period. Because that,
Yeah.
and I know things are going to change in the future, but in the past, that's what's happened. People haven't done it.
Yeah.
Whereas in our business, that's what we do.
Yeah. It needs to happen as well. Like you say, I think, it's that classic thing of, fire fast. You need to make
Mm.
sure that you relinquish those people as soon as possible because that energy that you're spending on, oh, this will get better, it just ends up becoming a bigger problem.
It, and it and the other thing is, in a really good business, if I'm useless and you're brilliant, as you are, Lizzie, then you are. Come on. But if I'm useless and you're brilliant, why should you have to work with me? How fair is that on you? How, as a business, are we going to get the best out of you, Lizzie, if I'm not performing? Because
Yeah.
you're thinking, hold on a minute, this is the acceptable standard. Well, no, in the Timpson world, the acceptable standard is a lot higher,
Mm.
and we don't want colleagues who are useless. We just don't.
So what do you do about, so here's a good question because people listening will always, I always get this, like they're like, I love the idea of autonomy and freedom and
Yeah.
empowerment. But as we all know, the flip side of that is accountability and,
Hmm.
radical responsibility, taking responsibility for how you show up, how you perform,
Hmm.
all of those kind of things. So, with that in mind, and part of the conversation that we've just had about kind of kindness, but also being very firm,
Hmm.
how do you kind of like approach things when that lack of accountability rears its head? Like how, if and when it does, like what does that look like?
Well, we only have two rules in our business. Well, we have three. The third is health and safety, but we don't need to go there today, do we? Because it's health and safety. So the third is health safety. But we have two really important rules. Everything else is a guideline, whether that's a price guide, um, whatever it is a guide, and people can try all sorts of things. Absolutely great. Okay. The two rules are look the part, which means wear your uniform, and you can't have a great business if your standards are not good in your branch or in your office. So basically, have great standards, part of the same thing. Look the part, wear your badge, wear your tie, wear your overall, do whatever you need to do. Make sure your shop's really clean and tidy. So there's no movement on that. That's what we expect. And the second one is put the money in the till,
Mm,
which means don't steal money and don't steal time,
mm,
because those two rules are non-negotiable.
yeah,
Okay, so that's where it comes from.
yeah,
Now, in terms of how we approach things where people aren't performing, and with those two rules, let's just say someone steals, gross
yeah.
misconduct, gone, out the door. Okay, now let's just say, Lizzie, you are normally, I'm going to call you a 10 out of 10 because you're absolutely brilliant. Yeah, you you
Got
are.
you.
So we've decided that this last month or so, you've really dipped. Now, as your manager, I would hope that we've got a great relationship. And I wouldn't have left it a month anyway. I'd have left it a day and said, "Are you all right, Lizzie?" And you might say, absolutely fine. Or you might say, "I'm not great. What's
Mm,
wrong?" When you talk about these things.
yeah,
However, let's just say we've had a few of these conversations. Everything's still great as far as you're concerned. However, it's not working for us. You might have worked in our business for 10 years, 15 years, who knows? At some point, I'm going to be saying to you, look, we're trying to support you here, but you're not performing. What's going to happen? Now, we're
mm,
not afraid to do performance improvement plans in the hope
yeah,
that things improve. However, you and I both know often with these things, they don't. I have had people say to me, "Thanks for doing that, Janet. I really appreciated it. I felt much happier doing it. It does happen." But generally, you and I both know when you're on a performance improvement plan,
yeah,
you're heading in the wrong direction. So we
yeah,
would do stuff like that. And we're also not afraid to say, "Look, Lizzie, what is it? You're not happy here anymore. Whether you've been
mm,
here 5 minutes or you've been here 50 years, you're not
yeah,
happy. What can we do?
mm,
For you to find your happiness elsewhere. And it's not because you're not nice and you're not a great person,
yeah,
it's just that you're not performing.
yeah.
So we'd have those conversations and go down that normal route. I
That's
mean, we are really good. We have an extra step in our process. we have what we call a letter of concern to add in an extra step. So you can go a long time to get where out the door. But yeah, letter of concern, which basically just says we're just concerned. It's not a disciplinary, it's a letter to say we're just concerned. And
Yeah,
that's an opportunity for us to have a even better chat and
yeah,
say, look, what should we do next? A lot of
definitely.
businesses don't have that letter of concern, but we do.
No, that's really powerful, Janet, because I think it can quickly get so formal and so
Mm,
unhuman really
yes.
quickly when people do slip or start
Mm,
wanting to grow and shape shift in a different way. We
yes.
go so formal and so kind of transactional all of a sudden
Of
and really
course.
inhuman. And I just think,
Yes.
but they're also an individual and we can have those conversations, and those conversations help us both learn something about each other, help
Hmm.
us connect in such a much more deep way.
Hmm.
Immediately going to like this formal procedure, it's kind of almost like a knee-jerk reaction a lot of the time.
It is. I think it's when people don't know how to handle a situation. It's like, let's get that piece of paper. Let's use that because it's more formal and it means I can step back from the equation because it's not now about me and Lizzie. It's about a process. It's true, isn't it?
It's
That's what
so
happens.
true. It's so true. It's really grim as well when you think about it like that, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah, it
ooh.
is. It is. No, it does become really grim. And if someone's not happy at work, then if they're well within the rights to explain that they're not happy or what they'd like to do. There's nothing right in our business. People are very open. You
Yeah.
know, people might say to their, especially to their area managers. So our people in branches might say to an area manager, "Oh, I'm thinking of leaving. I'm thinking of going to Sainsbury's, and I'll get this." And the area manager will talk to them and go, okay, if that's how you really feel. I don't think it's right for you to go, blah, 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 blah. And then we'll find that somebody, whoever it was, 3 years down the line, is still working with us and as happy as anything. Sometimes it's just about communicating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then they realize they look outside of the Timpsons thinking the grass is green and go, oh no, it's definitely not. I'm gonna reel myself back in.
That does happen. And also sometimes life away from work. This is why we try and support our colleagues. It's not just about what goes on between 9 and 5 or 8 and 6. It's about what goes on in their lives.
Mm,
Sometimes what's going on in life away from work affects what they do in work. So
yeah.
that's why we're really supportive to try and help and support them, to support maybe the families, the children, the dog, the cat, whatever it is that's going on,
Yeah.
because the people do get affected and they do bring it into work, even though we
Absolutely.
all say, don't we, oh, people don't bring it into it. They do.
Yeah,
They're
they do.
not at the best, are they?
No, no, we're not robots, are we? All of those
No.
things like, impact our emotions, how we perform,
Yes.
our cognitive ability to think
Yeah.
straight, all of those
Mhm.
things. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Oh,
it's really important, I think, for a lot of businesses to invest time and energy in the people.
yeah.
And that's not just about developing training, which is all really important. It's about
Mm,
understanding what makes Lizzie tick, what makes Janet tick, because everybody's different. So what makes
mm,
you tick isn't going to be what makes somebody else tick. So we can't look after everybody in exactly the same way. It's about needs. You might be the sort of colleagues whose needs are very, very small. You love to come to work. You like to get on. You're driven. You want to move. You want to do everything, and that's fine too. Somebody else might be very shy, very reserved, struggle with anxiety, have a problem
mm.
with family life, who needs that bit more attention. So it's about working out who needs what.
Yeah, definitely. It's having that human connection, isn't it, with
It
people,
is.
actually
Yes.
getting to know people on that human level rather than
Mm.
just seeing someone as their role or what they do, and kind of treating each other in that kind of respect. And it's interesting. People often say to me like, "Oh, well, I don't come to work to be best friends with everyone,"
Yeah. I
and
hear
I'm
that
like,
all the time.
I get that. I totally get that. Like, I'm not going to invite everyone to my baby shower or whatever. I get that. But at the same time, we can't build trust and have a really good work environment if we also don't have a sense of connection to the other person. Doesn't mean you
Correct.
have
Yeah.
to like tell them everything, but it's having that sense of oh, you've got my back and I've got your back, and
That's right.
I know what makes you tick when you're when you're working really well, and I know what you need when you're having a bad day. Like those
Mhm.
are small things. It doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everyone.
It doesn't. It's about mutual respect as
Yeah.
well. Doesn't matter what level you're at in a business. It's the mutual respect. You can be the most junior colleague or the most senior colleague. Makes the difference. It's about having that respect for each other as people and individuals, just like we do at home with our loved ones. Although
Yeah.
sometimes at home with your loved ones it can be slightly different, clearly, especially on a bad day when you're tired, tired or emotional, it can be very different. However, in the workplace, but it
Yeah.
is about, when you see somebody, speaking to them, talking to them, knowing their names. That's a reason why we wear name badges, so
Mm.
that if we've got not just external friends and guests who come in to see us, um, but up and down the country, it's connecting to say, oh, at least you go into a shop and somebody's got a name badge, John maybe. It helps somebody who may not have spoken to somebody all day or all week to go, oh, I know this person's called John. It's that immediate connection.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
And that's very important, especially for some of our elder generations
mm.
who can get quite lonely. And some of our customers come into our branches just for a cup of tea.
Oh,
And it's because they probably won't see anybody other than that. So
bless.
it's really important to have that. Like you said, it is all about people and connections, putting people first.
Oh, I've really enjoyed this, Janet. I really have. I feel like we could just keep going. There's so much. There's so much. But wrapping up, I would love to hear. I mean, you have kind of said throughout today is like if more businesses did this, how different it would be. So what would be like your top three things that you would want to kind of be your parting words of wisdom to try and make people think and take action on after listening to us today?
I would say don't try and keep total control. Trust. The second one is trust those people around you who actually know what they're doing. And the third one is don't be afraid of taking chances. The
Mm,
business is not going to fall apart because something went wrong. You can just
yeah,
move on from it and don't dwell on it.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Oh,
keep moving forward.
Janet, you have just been such energy and motivation and inspiration today. It has, yeah, really filled my cup up. So thank you so, so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you too, Lizzie. Thanks so much for inviting me.
You've been listening to Make It Thrive, the Company Culture Podcast,